I click the links to join the channel here over at SubScribeStar. So this guy says that there's too many Scottish in Scotland, and for some reason he's there leading the country. So Scotland free speech meets J.K. Rowling. Well, you've got the speaker's box, the ballot box, and the cartridge box. J.K. Rowling versus free speech. J.K. Rowling defies Scottish authorities as new hate crime and public order act is enforced. I look forward to being arrested. Well, they're not going to arrest her. That's just part of anarcho-tyranny. They'll enforce the law when the spotlight is not on them. You're not going to get equal treatment. You're not going to enforce the law against her because it would be a great example, and she has the wherewithal to defend against it. So it's 2024. The dying empire that is the West is starting to collapse, and as people stop trusting the government and media, as well they should, because they lie to serve their own interests. Remember, go burn down the suburbs. We need our weave. But in a system that is losing trust and moral authority as it goes from a high to a mid to a low trust society, but still within the infrastructure of civilization, the government and media, the two-faced Janus of the propaganda machine, don't worry about why people don't trust them. Because they don't have to worry about it. They never consider transparency in a smaller government. They get a less powerful government. They get a Nina Jankowicz and a Ministry of Truth, or in Europe, hate speech laws, which are the close to end stage of anarcho-tyranny, because I can promise you that the laws will only be enforced against the real Scottish people. That's why the right-wing J6 people are in prison now, and the Antifa BLM people get the charges dropped. Titled The Hate Crime, Scotland 21, first passed a couple years ago. Per the document, the act is enforced to make provision against the aggravation of offense by prejudice. It's a bunch of doublespeak. It just means we will enforce it when we want to enforce it against the right wing and against Scottish people, European people, and not against others. The thing is, people accept all this because they're too fat to get off the couch and they have video games to play or sports ball. Over in Europe, it's football, soccer. And anyone who does anything will be called a Fed glow anyway. So it's safer to be a 300-pound video game playing Coomer consumer, drinking beer and waiting for the next Marvel movie. Fat men don't revolt, and by the time you're starving and you need to revolt, it's too late, and you find that you don't have any rights left. No society needs hate speech laws. It's a way, I guess, a priori for the globalist parasitical media government machine to set, control, and enforce the narrative. Why on earth would you need the government telling you what speech is allowed? One of the examples is the in JK issue is the trans thing, where the state can, as part of the humiliation ritual for a conquered cattle debt slave people, is the absurdity of this level of gaslighting, where men or women. It's the emperor has no clothes level of Weimar, and actually, as BuzzFeed says, it's a good thing to sterilize your children, because self-inflicted genocide is, I don't know, that sounds absolutely horrible. Yeah, it is. The sad thing is the left wing, who aren't actually insane, know that in 20 years people are going to look back at sterilizing kids, giving them cross-sex hormone and elective surgery to mutilate them, and they'll see it as horrific as every other stupid thing that people did as a fad. But they don't have the courage to stand up against it. A lot of it feels overwhelming for the normies because things are so far gone now that people are starting to get the feeling that voting is not going to work. Things in the West have collapsed so fast because in a high-trust system, parasites will simply use that honorable system against you. They don't care about a social contract, and no, you can't vote your way out of any of this. So in Europe, they don't have free speech, and don't get me wrong, things aren't much better in America. You got the First Amendment. Yeah, do you? HB 269 in Florida and various other similar bills where they, was it South Dakota and Florida? And many other states, half the states have, or three-quarters of the states have anti-BDS laws, and many of them are... the South Dakota governor is looking at like special rules for special people. It's like that doesn't seem like that meets the elements of the First Amendment. They never thought they would need to enumerate it in Europe, and under no circumstances will the government give the people free speech, and you can't vote it in. It won't even be an option, or the votes will just never magically go your way, because the people, and a lot of them are just brainwashed to think that the media and government know what is best. So if you want free speech, it's going to have to be fought for. Anyway, if they can make you believe absurdities, well, then they can do anything they want. Anything's on the table. If they tell you that a man can get pregnant, it's like, you realize you're not dealing with rational actors. Men aren't women, and they never will be. What is going on is a war crime, but most people don't know that they're at war. They have no idea what is going on, probably because they were never taught it in history class, and everything they know is from Hollywood. They never bothered to read a book. So freedom starts with you being able to speak the truth and not have a government decide that the truth is going to be enforced by law. Lies are enforced by law. The government doesn't stop seizing power on its own. It grows until an outside force stops it. They want the government to view your kids as belonging to the state and that they must have total control over your kid. And if you don't believe your son is your daughter, then they'll take him away and sterilize him. That's what I mean. You can't vote your way out of something this evil. That is a UK that is going to need a radical reforming of how the natives view themselves and how they want the future to look like. And it's going to take many drastic things. But since the government is already making hate speech laws, that means that they will do horrible things, and it's illegal for you to speak out against it. How this started over the past 100 years was they create these terms and they normalize it using university professors and the media to get these terms out there. And nobody really thinks that it's like this sociological manipulation on this large scale manipulation by creating these istophobic terms. The public accepts them over decades, and university professors write papers about them as if it's a real thing, but it's this circular logical reasoning. It's all just a philosophy. None of it's based in reality. It's a way to manipulate people on a 100-year time scale. And so they're building these shields. They're putting these shields in place. And then 50 years later, 100 years later, when they need the shields, because they're going to do horrible things, well, they start doing horrible things. And when you speak out against the horrible things and against people, protected interests or ideologies, well, then they just raise these shields and the shields are now become a signal to the media and to social media to attack this person who has been labeled with this istophobic label. And then they use this kind of bootstrap circular method to get the government to start enacting special provisions, hate crime statutes, which don't make sense. It's like a crime should just be a crime. You don't need a political, ideological, wrong-think enhancement. But that's all actually happened, and you have to look at who sponsors those bills and who funds them and where does that money trace back to. And the media should look into that. It's like, yeah, they should also look into the Epstein stuff. And you notice that that's just a black hole of that's also kind of an interesting topic I'm gonna do for the other platforms. Is the Epstein stuff hurting kids is newsworthy, and it's horrible. Don't get me wrong. And he got what was coming to him, as should everyone else involved, but they're not going to. That's not the story so much. People do horrible things all the time. Like, that's the concept of due process. In a functioning civilization, they get the due process, and then they get, turned into they get their due process, turned into fertilizers. What I wanted to say after legal due process. The story is that the media didn't cover the story after he self-deleted and his partner in the French prison self-deleted. The media just didn't cover that story. Doesn't anyone scratch their head and say why? It's like, well, who's going to do that? People rely on the media. It's just kind of this contractual concept of detrimental reliance, where people have this media in place and they think, okay, we don't need to be our own media. We're going to rely on the mainstream media to our detriment. And then they figure it out too late that, the media is completely a captured institution. as well as many other institutions, are captured universities for sure. And they use this soft power of witch trials through, the guy who just self-deleted the comic book thing with accusations where the accusation is the proof. And they go, well, where's the due process for that? Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. They go, oh, it's a court of public opinion. There's no due process. Like, oh, there's something is wrong here. We should fix this. Like, they're not going to fix that because the people, the puppet masters want to control you through that soft power, the hidden shadow power. So the Epstein thing is I said that a lot of times. You're not going to get monetized. I don't mind the monetization going away because it's not much. It's that it's kind of a mark on the wrong thing scheduled for YouTube, and that's not good to have. Really, like, how much longer can this channel last? So the story of that is that the story isn't covered. There's so many stories that are missing. It's like Here There Be Dragons, so you just go around it. It's there's so many of those kind of stories. But the white pill, obviously, with the detrimental reliance concept of the mainstream media, is that you have alt media. You have these independent channels who are doing the things, and then the other soft power deflection for the puppet masters is they go after payment processors because everything needs funding, and there's obviously you're not going to get any advertising on those kind of channels because they will just go after the advertisers. So now they go after the payment processors, but even the white pill of that is that now there are alternative things for that, so you can be your own media. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys all next episode. No? Yes? Maybe?